So welcome everyone. We present our first agriculture-focused roadshow focusing on India. I'm Jitendra Marchino. I am with Educe Analytics. We are a Sydney-based research, consulting, and corporate access company, and we are active in the Australia-India corridor. The recent free trade agreement between India and Australia is creating new opportunities. Today, we present Ravi from Agrisk, who will help us navigate this specific opportunity. Agrisk is an agtech analytics company. It offers information solutions in the agribusiness industry in India. They have a very specific offering in the agri infosystem, which is called Hummingbird. It is a dedicated terminal, and it's a great compass of the Indian agri economy. Agrisk was founded in 2007 by Ravishankar Mantha and Sankara Pillai, and it is based in Mumbai, India. We welcome Mr. Ravishankar Mantha, the CEO of Agrisk, the roadshow again. Over to you, Ravi.
Yep. Thank you, Jitendra, and good morning and good afternoon to all the listeners and viewers in Australia. It's great, and we love to. The moment Australia is brought, we are always very happy, and it brings us a lot of cheers. So the free trade definitely has opened a fantastic gateway between the two, and love to have a detailed discussion. Jitendra, thanks a lot for having us onto this beautiful program. Look forward to an interesting conversation.
Thank you, Ravi. So, Ravi, you mentioned the FDA, and it's nothing new. I think India and Australia have been trading in the agricultural field for a number of years.
Absolutely.
Do you think this FTA offers any fresh opportunities which is sizable?
So what happens, typically in a free trade agreement, or happens is that there are many restrictions which get removed, right? Based on, for example, the current FTA, which was finally taken to the ink, was probably started way back. It took about 10 years to fine tune the nuts and bolts. So that's how long it takes to really nail stories, and because a lot of it is to do with agriculture, and as you know, agriculture involves farmers on both sides, right? So that's and the moment the farmers are coming in, it's a different story and equation altogether. So the current FTA, I think, has taken the very, very nuanced perspective, taking the sensitivity on both sides, keeping all the the minute challenges that might emerge. For example, they've talked about providing free access over a period of 7 years. So there's a time frame and a time roadmap that has been brought into place, so that it gives probably a good roadmap even for all those who want to explore the potential opportunities that will evolve if not today, in the next 7 years. But so that from that perspective, I think the ambition is to take this to a $50 billion trade between the two countries. That's a very beautiful ambition and roadmap to have. And for that roadmap, I think this is a wonderful document. But yeah, it needs to get into action. And I guess that's where you're taking a very big initiative of trying to see what are the nuts and bolts, what are the opportunities, and how is it that we two can get together as India, Australia, India, and explore the opportunities and cater to the global arena right from here. And that's the whole objective. I think that's a fantastic way to get started.
Yeah, I think this has created a lot of buzz in Australia specifically. It's been mulled both in the positive and negative sense, because whenever you open up your agriculture, there is some issues and some sentiments to be handled. Yeah, people are excited, but I think there are some problems in the way. Like I'll give you an example. Last year, at the end of last year, we were helping an Australian entity explore exporting of agricultural produce to India. Large size exports for produce that India has big demand for.
Okay.
And when we were working, we thought that we just will have to face the normal, administrative issues and approvals and other stuff. But as we delve deeper into this opportunity, we realized that the bigger issue, at least from the Australian perspective, is securing a large and a steady supply of the produce. Farmers and traders in Australia are much more organized, they're bigger farming lots. They already have off-take agreements in place with traders who do process the product and then send it across the world. And for us to get a share of that produce, they need to have relationships. They need to have a commitment that such and such tons would be available over the next 5 years or 7 years. And the other issue that the local producers and traders face is that they have a lot of information in their hand for other markets. They want a similar thing for India, where they should have data for Indian agriculture, which can help them predict the demand and the pricing of the produce. So it's not easy. So how do you think one should explore and get that business going?
So I think one of the most important thing, as we would all agree, is that one has to see beyond a transaction, right? If you need to develop a market, right, you got to invest into understanding the nuts and bolts, the dynamics, the local players, the pitfalls. I mean, given the way Indian agriculture is, it's fairly far more complex, right? Because one of the things is that agriculture is a state subject. So you've got 28 states in the country and 8 union territories. So each of them could potentially have a different agriculture policy. But there is a larger umbrella policy of the government of India, which is where the FTA comes in. But under that, the states still have a fair amount of say, or a good amount of say, when it comes to agriculture. So it is important that for any player, for a say Australian player to look at, there are multiple avenues that are really getting evolved in the Indian context. For example, they can start talking to the large corporates in India. For example, you can talk Tata Consumer, right? Tata Consumer is one of the largest. They're trying to be a large player in the pulses space, and we all know that a couple of pulses, lentils, etc. We all still importing, right? Maybe not other pulses, but lentils surely we are. So there could be a direct connect between the organized traders on the other side with, say, the corporates in India. So the market has evolved in a very big way, and it's evolving continuously. So that's where the opportunity mapping comes into the play. Like, what are the emerging opportunities for which you require multiple data points, which is very critical. And we have been working in that space quite aggressively, and in the last 4 to 5 years, and providing micro inputs and the macro perspective to many of the global entities, which we'll talk about it as we go down from here. So the first point is that it's important to create a better long-term story rather than, like I said, in the FTA, they're talking about 7-year horizon for many of the commodities. For example, you're talking about baby food, milk-based food for the babies, right? So I think you got to create stories around them. They were not open today, right? For example, sheep meat, right? Protein is a very important element, and as you would know, probably 70% of India is non-vegetarian, right? Though the conception is that we are a large vegetarian country, it is not so. We are a hardcore non-vegetarian country, and out of which protein, for example, the chicken plays a pretty critical role along with egg, and the red meat is not so much of beef, but surely goat and sheep is going to take a good amount of story out there. So the point is that the markets are evolving, right? So it is important that in this evolutionary market, what is the role that I need to play and create a bigger market share out of that? So there has to be a bit amount or a large or good amount of time and investment that needs to be done to develop the market. That's where many of the global entities have been successful in trying to capture the imagination of the local consumer. And an Indian palate is ever expanding, right? We always are fascinated by.
You made a very good point, Ravi, there. So I remember that when we are talking to some players here, one thing which came up for discussion was whey protein. And the essence was that Indians are now changing their lifestyle. There are a lot of people who are health conscious, and there is a demand for whey protein for exercise-oriented or performance-oriented sports. And and it is a big opportunity because India will grow in that space for sure, and Australia
Absolutely.
can help and supply that. So I think, yeah, you raise a very good point that you look at the opportunity, you look at the corporates playing there, the people who are processing it, the food processing industry in India, and then maybe ink a direct contact with them. That's where I think you and us can help.
So I think just to take extrapolate the example of whey protein, even to say the next would be oats, right? We are a large consumers of oat, and as you know, the way Australia is a large supplier of oats to India, and oats used to be produced in a very big way in India, but unfortunately over a period of time it's vanished, right? So that's one more of the point is that you have these micro elements and components and commodities that are very critical, but there are not enough stories being created around them. Whey, for example, whey we talked about, or oats we talked about. What is important is to be seen that yes, this is an Australian, we are masters in Australia, and it has to go beyond providing me a sachet or a bottle of whey. You've got to create stories around it, which is where many of the US companies or organizations have been extremely successful in creating stories around the various underlying products indirectly, right? That is very, very critical, and that is the way things will transform, right? That's where we see a big change.
Can you give me an example? You mentioned about organizations or trade promotion organizations doing work in a specific agri-produce. So I think you were talking about the US and soya. So can you just give a bit more detail about that?
Yeah, so I always give this example. I mean, it's very fascinating that the way a US Soya Export Council works, right? I mean, we do not have any free trade agreement with the US as yet. But USEC, which is essentially the export marketing arm of the soybean farmers in the US, their job mandate is to go and sell US soybean globally. In India, they have a fantastic mandate. It's a reverse marketing. So for the last 20 years plus, they have been trying to create awareness about soya, whether it's nuggets or soya proteins. They've been trying to create awareness about protein consumption, importance of protein. They have done a fantastic job. And we have been associated with them for the last 10 years. And we have done we did as recently as about 15 days back. We concluded probably the country's largest work on estimating poultry demand for the next 5 years in India. So what is their interest in doing protein? Because protein, what does the chicken do? Chicken is nothing but 50% protein, soya and maize. There's nothing else in chicken. So if soya gets consumed domestically, if chicken gets consumed, soya gets consumed, so we don't export. That's what, because India is a large exporter of, India's got a large crop, about 10 to 11 million soya is what we typically grow. The point is that they have invested in creating stories around protein, not about soya. They said, you're a protein deficient country. Yeah. This is where the protein can come through you. So let's talk about them. So they created soya dal, soya pulse. I mean, that's been taken pretty well. So the point I'm trying to drive is that on a similar time frame, on a similar framework way, it's important for us boards, trade boards or associations or organizations to create these kind of interventions and stories around, say, whey, or in terms of the importance of taking care of weight and body and etc. and all that, and the importance of health. So that's where the whole market will evolve. What I'm trying to say is that knowledge is a very easier way, right, to start getting access, providing information to many entities. It'll create a deeper impact. So that is the kind of an effort that needs to be put into place.
So you did mention that we are being more efficient in agriculture in India. I think we recently had a record export of agri-produce. We did very good. On the ground, what are the factors you think are driving the production and efficiency in agriculture in India?
So there are a couple of things in the last probably about 10 years or so which has taken place, or it's been, I think the momentum has picked up pretty substantially. One of them is obviously the acceptability of technology, both in terms of payment, in terms of digital platforms, and also the acceptability of technology at the farmer level. Right? So both have been a very important critical role, and also the fact that the domestic farmers, they've started moving out of the subsistence farming framework into a large-scale commercial program. Right? For example, the introduction of the farmer producer organizations have created a huge amount of buzz, which has helped the farmer. It's like a cooperative, but it's a corporate, it's a private entity and kind of a thing that has been created. So such changes has, and also the allowing of large-scale corporates and private traders into the hitherto domain of the the commission agents, etc. So there's been a huge transformation in the entire value chain, right? Whether in terms of cold chain, massive investments have gone in, or whether in terms of logistics, a huge amount of roads have been developed. So trucks, the transportation platforms, they have evolved very beautifully. You've got the railway lines which have evolved. So overall, for example, we have done a massive amount of exports to Bangladesh using the train route, which was never done before. Right? During the pandemic, the Indian railways were actually exporting, within the country, they were transporting using the railway line, which was never done before. So the point is, the entire ecosystem has kind of got well greased, and that is what has created which is what is unleashing the power of the Indian farmer in the global scenario. And that's the reason we have been able to do, for example, wheat. We did about 8.5 million tons last year, and we aspire to do probably around 10 millions or 11 millions this year, give and take how the global scenario happens. But will we become a global agricultural player? It's a bit long call at this point in time, because there are many things that need to be put in place. So, having said that, would we stop importing? I don't see for pulses. I think it's again a big long shot, because there would still remain a lot of competition and the growing demand for the protein part of it. So the idea is that the point I'm trying to drive is that the local developments are taking place. It's getting organized. At the same time, the trade element, it is also going to be opening up in a bigger way. That's a path that we're trying to see.
So Ravi, I think you did mention a lot about old world thing that India is changing, infrastructure, cold storage, transportation. What's happening in the agri-tech space? You run an agri-infosystem company. What kind of technologies and platforms are trying to change the realities, are trying to change the way agriculture works in India?
So I think the most important part, the technological intervention that we are seeing working on the ground, for example, has been as small as soil sensors, right? So there's been a huge amount of, today we have over 1,000 plus more startups who are working in the entire agri-tech ecosystem. Many of them in the supply chain, many of them in the direct farm to fork. There are, you name it, in every sphere, there is a bunch of hardcore technology entities who are solving the problem for the Indian farmer. But has that reached to a scale? It's still a long way to go. But the efforts, the foundation has been laid fantastically, whether it is in the supply chain, whether it is in the credit market, or whether it is in the technology, the sensor space. There is a lot of, for example, I'll give you an example that there's a Japanese entity who's trying to speak to us to bring in micro sensors into the country to see if that can be used to their technology. They are the global, they are the world's largest chip and sensor supplier to all the mobile phones, right? So they are trying to come into the country and seeing if they can, their solution or the technology they have, can that be beneficial to the Indian farmer? So the point is that the acceptance at the various strata, right, like sensor technology, or whether it is supply chain framework, or whether it's the credit. Credit is a very big space that a lot of activities already take place. So and most of this, for example, a lot of effort has been used to make open source technology based platforms, because that's the best we can do. For example, we are completely based on open source. We don't use any of the licensee product because we can't afford to pay licenses. And open source technology is what most or probably 90% of the startups in the country are focusing on to create solutions around that. And if there exists a technology which can help us to enhance the current technological interventions that are taking place, drones, for example. I mean, the drones are going to get onto a very rampant use today, or remote sensing technology. We are using all these technologies already in the country. Yeah, but they all have proven successfully. There are many limitations to it, but the path has been well laid. So, AgTech has become a very, very important element, enabler in creating a good, in oiling the entire agriculture ecosystem. And we see that to be a very, very important leverage if there exists under the, auspices of the FTA. If there is something that Australia can offer to the Indian AgTech entities, I think that can be huge. It's a very beautiful thing to ride on to create an opening for the Australian products.
Thank you, Ravi. Now, can you throw some light on how Hummingbird works? Like we can see the terminal behind you, and we can see a lot of information out there. So, how does it work, and what value add does it give to the agri industry in India right now?
So the whole idea of Hummingbird was to be the Bloomberg and Reuters for Indian agriculture, given the way Indian agriculture data is all over the place. So we've created a very strong, robust data collection framework, which is a multi-pronged. We use feet on street and use the remote sensing technology. So we get feet to understand the depth, and we use GIS to look at the breadth of it. So our objective is to provide continuous data on the various micro aspects of the crop, starting, for example, let's say planting intention and so on and so forth, goes up to end of the season crop estimates, etc. Our objective is to empower all those entities who are dependent upon agriculture directly and indirectly. Yeah, that's what we are really focused upon. I'll just draw your attention to what we did for, say, USOA Export Council, right? It was demand estimation for poultry into the country. So we had many such data points. So idea is that when we are looking at such micro elements, we end up having plethora of data points which can be applicable and used for various entities who are trying to look at the opportunities in the Indian agriculture sphere. So we worked with a lot of multinationals which are based in India, and we offer them intelligence services, which ranges very wide. Like I said, it goes into estimation to it also into monitoring and so on and so forth. So that's what our initiative is all about. And in fact, incidentally, we had also met probably about a bunch of 20 farmers about 3 to 4 years back in Mumbai, and they were also we were introduced to them, and they were trying to look for various opportunities. And this was much before the FTA was being put in place. So I wish we could go back to those farmers again and say, look, hey, now things are opened up. Let's start talking. Yeah, that's what we do.
If the listeners have any question, please feel free to put in the chat. Now, one thing which comes often in Australia or any developed country about India is that, yeah, it's a great country, a lot of specific agriculture produce is being produced, efficiency is increasing. But what gets highlighted a lot is the supply chain in India.
Yeah.
And the loss of crop from the farmer to the fork. Where do you think what's happening there, and where are we moving in that direction?
In fact, a lot of the ag tech is focusing on addressing the supply chain issues. So there's a huge development of cold chain. For example, I'll give you during the COVID time frame, right? Okay, let's just step backwards. As you know that we as a country are probably 80% or probably close to what we have seen in our research is that 90% of our poultry consumption, fresh meat, comes from the neighborhood shop, right? We don't take yet the processed or cut, packaged kind of a thing. During the pandemic time, there were entities which forced the entire behavioral change. Licious, for example, it's a fantastic journey that we've been on. We did a lot of study on them. So they changed the entire consumption behavior by putting in cold chain, by giving me instant, absolutely fantastic marinated meat at my doorstep. So the pandemic has moved, or we see the movement from the near my not the house shop to the entire thing of packaged meat story. So that is where the consumer is shifting to. So the setting of this cold storage has and low cost cold storage solutions has enabled this. So exactly in the similar frame, all the entire whether it's vegetables or other crops, everything is so the cold storage setup has really transformed in a very big way than what it was probably 10 years back, because the solutions have come in. You got low cost cold storage across which are evolving. So that is one big transformation that has happened, which is aiming to reduce the overall supply chain shocks in a very big way.
So the pandemic has changed a lot of things, and I think the cold chain has
absolutely
been that's good to know. We had one question earlier on email, Ravi, and I think very pertinent to what you have been highlighting. The question is there an opportunity in the current cohort of agri-tech companies in India for a regional or global expansion? I think the idea here is that is agriculture a very local business, or can these agri-tech companies expand, say, in the Southeast Asia or say globally?
Oh, of course. I mean, the beauty of most of most of the technology that has evolved in the Indian environment, in the Indian agriculture environment, makes us amenable to the entire the southern hemisphere, because the problems in the entire southern hemisphere, right down to Latin America and to the say Vietnam, is almost on a similar plane. Lack of data, lack of this, lack of that. So the structures are same. Whether you're creating a cold chain solution which is applicable in India, or you're trying to replicate that in Africa, it's far more easier. So you've had these global entities, local startups who have gone global. For example, you've got entities like in the farm ERP ecosystem called Cropin. I think they have done remarkably well. They're giving a very tough competition to the global farm ERP solution providers. So similarly, we have that ambition of trying to move out once we are able to stabilize our story in India, to take that to Africa, or to take that to Indonesia, to the Southeast Asian market. So all the solutions that we have are easily replicable across the southern hemisphere, where there is good amount of these solutions that we have created are largely based on the chaos that exists out here, right? Which is not the case in the Western market. It's a very different market. The West is a very different market altogether. Here, there is a lot of chaos. So we guys are trying to smoothen the chaos. So that's the reason our solutions will be far more resilient to shocks, whilst against what the West can provide in these markets. So that's where we have the competitive advantage.
I think we're coming to the end of our discussion here. So I think the key takeaways I take is that Indian agri-tech is doing very well. They have actually seen a big jump in the pandemic. We are looking to expand regionally and globally. As you mentioned, on the ground, supply chain issues have changed. They have improved. And India has to look at a different perspective in terms of importing and exporting of agri-produce. And traders and farmers in Australia have to realize that they have to understand the market through data and analytics, and then take a call, start exporting, or promote a specific produce, as you mentioned, like oats or whey protein, and create direct corporate customers that they can supply to. I think it's a good takeaway for this discussion today. And thank you, Ravi, for enlightening us on Hummingbird, Agrisk, and how the market is growing. And from Educe Analytics, we thank all people who are listening today and who will be listening to us later through the podcast. And if you have any questions regarding the India-Australia corridor, do reach out to us on research@educeanalytics.com. And please visit our website and reach out to us for any partnership opportunities. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you. Thank you, Jitendra. All the best. All the best. Thank you so much.